Hey everybody, welcome to week 9 here in Farm to Table. How's everybody doing? Some thumbs up? All right, happy to hear it. Cool. Well, you all know how we like to do this. Let's hear from you all first. Any comments or questions regarding week 8 that you'd like to share? Anything that you observed or anything otherwise, then we will see if Chef Bryce has anything to share, and I'll talk a little bit about what I've noticed so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was cauliflower, top chef. So hopefully, from what I've seen, at least everyone has done really great job with it, like utilizing the entire cauliflower, walking through all the recipes, and seems like a lot of people had fun with this. It seemed like a little bit more approachable than our chicken livers, which I hope everyone enjoyed. But you guys really showcase that utilization on walking through different recipes as well as the final products that came out great. You guys did a really great job with that. It didn't seem like people really had a lot of trouble with this. So I don't know. What do you guys feel? Do we like it? Can we use cauliflower? Entire menu now on cauliflower? What are we thinking?
I do see one comment from Elizabeth in the chat. Surprising how different cauliflower can taste. Yes, right? So that's the magic of knowing how to take one ingredient, which is what we talked about last week, and apply multiple different cooking techniques and styles to it, because you develop different flavors, right? In the grilled or roasted or pan-seared, you get that start to develop that caramelization, that Maillard reaction. You get that golden brown, crispy notes, right? And the texture is different compared to the puree. I did notice that some people didn't take the puree as far as they could have. And that might have just been, you might have been a little bit hesitant to do so, but a lot of people still had a touch of graininess. You can keep going with cauliflower puree. That's the beauty of it. Compared to a palm puree, which we know sometimes if you overwork it, it can get tacky and sticky, right? Because that gluten, it gets almost like gum glue-like. With cauliflower, you really don't have to worry about that happening because it doesn't have the starch component like potatoes do. So you can get that to a super velvety, really luxurious, smooth consistency, velvet-like. So always keep going with that. A little bit of one person had a, hi Elvina, too thin of a puree. So if that happens, remember, you want to be able to adjust a consistency. So either your measurements were a little bit off to begin with, or if you still had some reserved whole cauliflower, you could add that in, all right? It's hard to remove once you've added, so that's another note. To slowly, gradually add that cream or whatever broth you're using to adjust the consistency slowly. All right. Sounds pretty good overall. Shanna.
Hey, Chef, how are you?
Hey.
I tried you asked me about the sauce. The sauce that I used was a cauliflower au gratin sauce that I found at the store. I kind of really wanted to see how that flavor brought it out, and it came out really good and tasty. Cauliflower on cauliflower. So it was pretty good. Good stuff.
Interesting. So what we really wanted to see was making bechamel or mornay. So we talked about that in the live session because it's a mother sauce, right? But that is, you just went extra levels on that cauliflower, which is, as we talked about, cauliflower is being used as a new starch and carbohydrate replacement, such as the pizza crust. And I don't know if that they were just using the cauliflower as the thickener in the sauce that you got, but that's another way to look at it. Remember, a lot of people are turning traditional cream-based sauce that are usually thickened with a roux, and they're substituting keto-friendly or low carbohydrate replacers that give this mouthfeel, this richness, in replace of the traditional butter, fat, and flour to thicken ingredients. All right. Cool. Well, this week we are talking all about preservation. So, um, before we get into it, I'm going to put it all on to you. All right. Get a discussion going. What do we know about fermented products? What are some fermented products that you all know about? Pickles. Okay. Yeah. Pig's feet. They can be pickled and
Yeah,
fermented.
pig's feet. That's I like to see that.
Yes. What else? Kimchi. Yes, Russell. Exactly. What else?
Eggs.
You could pickle and ferment eggs. Yeah. What else? Think about some more common fermented products.
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut. Yep. Beer and cider. Yeah, Matthew. What else? What else is fermented?
Wine.
Wine. Yeah. What else? Yogurt. Yeah. Dairy products, right? A lot of dairy products are fermented. All right. Kombucha, another big craze these days, also fermented, right? No, you're not a fan, chef.
Mushroom tea? I don't know. I mean, it's definitely an acquired taste. I've looked into it a lot. It's very popular right now, but it just has a weird tang that I just can't get behind. And they're saying, "Oh, it's acquired. Try it." I don't know. I mean, I guess if the health benefits behind it, that's what you get a lot from this fermentation, especially kombucha has got that following right now. But it's not for me. Not for me.
And not everything is, right? As we've learned. But the key is tasting everything, try everything, and then knowing how it should taste, right? Going back to that week 7 talk. Fish, yes, fish can be fermented. So what do we all see? What is fermentation? What does that mean? What is happening to these products? It's okay if nobody knows. That's why I'm just asking.
I mean, the product is changing in some form. So, what aspects of that product is changing? Just a helpful hint.
Is it the acidity of the product?
Acids definitely has a part of that. Yeah. What do we think about fermentation? Flavor, yeah, flavor is in there as well. Fermenting, right? Lots of activity, bacteria, microbes, right? Flavor, texture will change as well, right? But the key here is that we're getting some microbes, whether they're injected or introduced into a controlled environment or coming in naturally, right? The nature has yeast and everything that's going to get into products. That's how open fermented beer, that's how they got their microbes and their distinct flavor profiles. But there are reactions that are happening, right? These microbes are allowed to flourish and grow, but big but, right? It's in a controlled way, right? Because fermentation can go off, and then you would have overly fermented, and you or your customers could get sick. So knowing how to properly ferment is a real skill, right? Because you have to control the environment. What do we know about environments, right? Of where food is. Who's ever left food out overnight and you smell it the next day? What do you notice? Maybe you taste it, maybe you risk it and taste it a little bit. It's sour. Yeah, exactly, right? So there are chemical reactions that are starting to happen. So What do we think part of that is, right? Now we're talking about the environment. Where do we know that bacteria, how does bacteria thrive and grow? Bacteria, yeah, Elizabeth, right? What either promotes or stops bacteria growth?
Moisture and heat.
Moisture, heat, yeah, what else? Awesome. Air, yep, that air that is going to be in there. What else? Chemical changes, yeah.
Think about maybe like the different tastes. What about our acidity level? You know, that can affect it. What about the sweetness, our sugar levels? Really getting into the, fermenting and preserving, those either can inhibit it or promote those as well. So think about those different flavors and what we're tasting as, we're either pickling or fermenting product as well.
The pH, right? Yes, chef, exactly. pH. Remember acidic versus alkaline, that pH balance, right? Where do those organisms thrive in? Okay. So we're getting back into the nitty gritty, the real science of the kitchen. Okay. Now, what else is really important about uh, preservation techniques? Fermentation, pickling, jamming, dehydrating, freezing, salting, curing. Right? What else? What do all these have in common? All these preservation techniques have in common. Do we think these are new techniques or old techniques? Keeps food longer. Yeah. Old. How old? Very old. Yeah. Think about our humans, right? Ancient. There we go. Ancient. We're talking about thousands of years. Thousands of years. Caveman. Yeah, exactly. Right? Way back in the day. Guess what? Because preservation is how we survived. It's how you survive long periods of time without food. Okay? It's how you store food for food shortages. And we're talking about all the way from, sorry guys.
So we have to store these for a long periods of time. I mean, like we talked about with seasonality, these items aren't going to always be available to us year round. So how do we, take these items and be able to, you know, use them year long? So there's a lot of these preserving techniques that not only give us the ability to eat different items in different parts of the season, but also utilize more of the product. We've talked in previous classes like watermelon, pickling the rind. You can really be able to utilize more of the product by using some of these techniques. Um, Alvina, root cellars, exactly. Taking jerky, dehydrating, canning. There's so many different ways to preserve things to last us, to get the shelf life of those products longer. I think really now we have a movement where a lot of these restaurants are more attached to farms, and they have these products that they need to either utilize on their menu, or a lot of places are doing markets where they're selling these items as well. I think jerky and dehydrating is an awesome way to utilize different parts of your animal that you can normally wouldn't sell on your menu, but being able to increase that shelf life as well. What besides let's see. So we've kind of got jerky, dehydrating, canning. What other ways? We've talked a little bit about fermenting, you know, air drying. What other different ways can we do to preserve, you know, either fruits, vegetables, other things? What do we think? Or do we think that's all of them? So, Chef, we were just talking about, you know, why we need to preserve all these things and all the different techniques. So, I mean, dehydration and canning, there's air drying, salt curing, jellies, all of those items.
Awesome. Thank you, Chef. What about a big one? We're talking about temperatures. What else? I don't think I heard this being mentioned. Temperatures, not hot temperatures, but.
They do the refrigeration with the meats and steaks.
Yes,
They get a cool
dry
temperature.
aging. I think you're talking about dry aging. But what about freezing? Yes, Frida, right? Freezing, one of the oldest, okay? Also in those nether regions. All right. Dehydration. Guess what? Sun-dried. Think about sun-dried tomatoes. What about sun-dried peppers? What about sun-dried fish? Sun-dried mangoes? Sun-dried. Way back in the day, right? When you don't have a refrigeration, right? Let's go into a hot area, all right? Because remember, different regions, different climates are going to have different preservation methods that they use more frequently. Smoked, yes, exactly, that as well. So think about, let's go somewhere tropical, right? Let's go somewhere sunny, hot, and you've got a lot of heat coming down. Well, guess what? What are you going to do? You're not going to throw an oven on or a dehydrator. You're going to lay a cloth out. You're going to put your harvest out. You're going to put netting over that to protect from insects. And you're going to let that sun beat down and dry those, okay? Or if you get a huge catch of fish in, what are you going to do? You're going to slit those, fillet them, right? Put them up and let them hang in the sun to dry, right? Because we're talking about high heat temperatures, okay? Smoking. What do we know about smoking? We're going to talk a little bit more about smoking, but what do we know? What does smoking do? Are there two different types of smoking? What are they?
You got the grill.
Smoke cures, yeah, cold and hot, right? So, true, William. So there's hot and cold smoking, which are done at different temperatures and have different impacts on the end product, the life of the shelf life of those products, all right? And how you store them as well. So, all right. What other, just one thing. What do we think we can pickle? What can you pickle? Everything. That's the answer. Yep, exactly. Right. Now, what's important in making a pickling solution? What do we think? What's important in making a pickling solution? Salt, yeah, or brine. And what else? Salt and sugar water ratio. What's that, Shanna?
Some type of vinegar solution.
Acid, yeah, vinegar ratio of sugar. All right, guys and gals, that's right, right? Really important components, right? That acid, salt, and a bit of sugar, right? Helps balance. Of course, then you add different spices and flavor profiles to that, but those are the benefits. And what does that come down to? That pH, that acidity level. What else do we know about pickles? They're quick pickles, right? Which you can have them be ready in about 45 minutes. And then there are pickles that you want to keep refrigerated. And then there are shelf-stable pickles that you can see at the grocery store, that you can see in your pantry. Who's ever had a pickle, taken it out of the jar, and it didn't have that snap, that crunch, that texture you were looking for? I see Elvina mouthing it. So yeah, did you say it was old? Yes, exactly, right? Stale, yeah, right? Old, right? Now, there's maturation periods of a pickle, right? Because first things first, let's take away those quick pickles. Let's talk about a pickle that we want to develop flavor, okay? And say I've put garlic cloves and peppercorns and cloves and dillweed and black peppercorns in my mix. We need time for those vegetables or whatever we're pickling to absorb those flavors as well, right? And what does the acid do to the vegetables?
It breaks it down.
Yeah, breaks it down, starts to tenderize it. So we've got that pickle, right? We've hit that great flavor profile. It's going to stay good for a while, and then eventually we hit that tipping point, and they've been sitting too long in that acidic solution, and the fibers start to break down, and that's what happens when you get an old pickle, right? It doesn't have the snap. It doesn't have the integrity of the original pickle. Is it still safe to eat? Yeah. Is it delicious to eat? Not as much, right? Yeah, it looks funny. What happens? Does the color change? Who's ever been to a really good deli? A good, yeah, I think Katz's Deli? Is that what you're talking about? In New York? Yeah, all right. So let's talk about a good deli, right? Who's ever been into a great deli, Jewish deli? You got nice sandwiches, and you usually have two barrels of pickles, cucumbers, and tomatoes. We've got the new ones and the old, right? Young pickles are still fresh. They're vibrant. Yes, green, right? They're bright green. Then the older pickles, they've started to turn more of an army green. It's duller, right? That acid is slowly breaking those components down, okay? And they're softer. Chemical reactions. All right, Chef. I know you have made a ton of pickles. I know you're excited. Tell us, give us some good info. Tell it. I see it. I see it all over your.
I know. I love pickles. I love pickles. I mean, what goes great with a steak, or especially something rich and fatty, that acidity comes through it. But I don't know how many times I've made pickles, and so many different factors need to go into it as well. I mean, for one, if our salt solution or salinity isn't right, then it tastes like a cucumber. You don't get that nice pickle flavor. You have a ton of snap, but people are like, why am I just eating a watered down cucumber? So you got to be careful with that. And a lot of times too, when you let those pickles sit, what I've run into is your vinegar and your salt kind of separate. So if you're not constantly mixing those pickles, and I'm not talking about canning because canning's a little bit different, but when you make like a big batch of pickles that you're serving on your menu, your salinity with your water, it separates. So down at the bottom, your vinegar is going to sit down there, and then on the top, you have more water. So like when you pull out those pickles, you're tasting just a cucumber that's been watered down, versus at the bottom, and that's where all your vinegar and salt sit. So now they're almost too powerful. So a lot of times, if you aren't canning it and you're just making big batches of pickles, you need to kind of mix it up, or just make sure that like you put a weight on it so that all of them are submerged in that solution. As well as, if you have pickles and you let them sit too long, who's ever had a pickle that they've tasted it and they bite into it, it's kind of tingly tasting. Has anyone ever had that? Chef Catherine? If you haven't, I mean, that's probably a good thing you haven't, because that means those pickles have gone too far and they've started to ferment. They do have a shelf life, even though we are preserving it, if they're not treated right. But you have to think about the environment that they're in. When we make them in large batches and store them in our walk-in. They're open to that environment, especially if you're taking some out each day. Different bacteria and different things are going to get in there. even though you might have that, you've added salt, you've added vinegar to it, so it extends that shelf life, but you're still incorporating other things in there. That's why canning is important for your longevity of your vegetables. But a lot of restaurants, they don't can because, one, you have volume, you're going through product a lot, but also if you're not, writing your prep list right, or you're sitting on pickles too long, then, you can have waste. So it's definitely a fine balance. Seeing a lot of different versions of pickles, to say the least. And if you are thinking about making your own, like, reach out to me. But, like I said, if you take them or if you have them too long, they start to ferment and you get that tingly. So if you ever are out somewhere and you taste that, like, definitely bring that up to that restaurant, because you shouldn't have a fermented pickle. But it happens. It totally happens.
Thank you, Chef. Yeah, some comments in the chat about using pickling brine to help soften and marinate and break down, start that breakdown process, breaking down the proteins, right, of a chicken, right? Pickle brines are huge, right? But a pickle brine is really just a brine, right? So remember, maybe about 8 years ago, the turkey brine was the big thing, or maybe it was 10. I don't know. I'm losing track of time at this point. Let's not hound on that. But brining your turkey, right? Getting it in a solution of acid, salt, sugar, right? To make it juicier and more tender, right? That end result. But like you said, there's a limit to that. You don't want to keep it in the solution for that long that it starts to break down, and then you have a mushy texture, right? So just like we know about everything, timing is everything. Ratios are really important, right? Okay, acidity levels, your acidity, salinity, all of these factors come into play. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about fermentation. We've talked a little bit about pickling. Let's hop into we've got 2 more areas to cover. Obviously, as always, a ton of information to cover, but we're here to give you that brief. And if you want more deeper information, let us know. We can send you a ton of websites that will put you on, or suggestions for books to get you on the right track. So let's talk a little bit about dehydration, dehydrating items. What do we think is important about when dehydrating produce or meat? Protein. Taking the moisture out of it, yes. What else? What's important about how we process the items? Heat, yeah, heat can be there. You can have low heat dehydration, which is going to take a lot longer, and you can have high heat dehydration. Air, yeah. What?
Good circulation of air.
Circulation, yeah. What else? What's really important when we're processing, right? Processing meaning, how am I slicing, chopping, cutting? What's important when we're dehydrating? Thin, yeah, and thin and even, uniform. Yeah, close enough. Uniform. Thin and uniform, size, same size. Yeah. So just like when we're cooking, right? We want to have uniform shapes and sizes so they cook evenly. So too do we want that when we're trying to process food to get into a dehydration state. The thinner it is, the quicker it's going to dehydrate, right? Because we have increased the surface area, right? Also, what if, for example, I'm going to pull up the recipe. What we've got this week. You get to pick 2 of the 4. So choose 2 and knock them out. I'm going to pull up the recipe for the dried apples, and I want you to look at the recipe and tell me what you think is important, because the knife cut on this is going to be really critical to how your product dries out. Sorry, wrong one. All right, there we go. Step 3 is what we want to be looking at. No wedges, okay, class, no wedges. We've had a lot of students in the past cut the apple like a wedge. It's cored, right? It has one end that's small and the other side that's large. Guess what? You're gonna end up with really not properly dehydrated apples. Your exterior is gonna get dry, and then you're gonna have a center that's still wet, right? Now, what's gonna happen if we don't thoroughly dehydrate that and we leave a product with moisture in it? What will happen? Mushy, yeah. What else? Mold, yes. It's going to start to be more prone to bacteria, right? That moisture contact. They're not going to last that long. You take out a properly dehydrated, who's ever purchased dehydrated, dried apples from a store, right? Now, not all of them, but most of them are really hard and crispy, right? The ones that are soft have more likely than not preservatives added to them, okay? They might be dehydrated, but they're gonna have some preservatives in there. Molding or rotting, yeah, exactly, okay? So thin, even slices. Also, why are we putting in the lemon juice? Oxidation, right? To prevent it so we don't have discolored items, right? We want to keep that nice and even. Okay. One more. I'm going to get into the jams and jellies. What do we know about jams and jellies? What's important with those? Your end result. What are you looking for? Do you want something that's really runny and you dip into the jar and it's barely holding any structure? Spreadable, okay, spreadable, yeah, great. Pectin, yeah, right? Or what if we had too much pectin and it's wobbling like a stiff piece of Jello, right? Right, okay, so pectin is important. I want to pull something up to show you all because this is important. Some fruits and vegetables have pectin and have enough pectin in the fruit already. You don't need to add it, but that's not true for all of them. So just want to show you in case this recipe, this week's recipe for the jam, it calls for strawberries. Now, unless you're in Florida, I forget who it was who was sending me the link to it's like Florida strawberry season right now. Okay, for those who are in a colder area, it's not quite yet strawberry season, but you have an option of using frozen for this recipe, or the alternative would be to select a fruit from this group 3. Okay, group 3. What do we know about group 3? Group 3 is going to require acid and pectin to hold its shape and get that right consistency. So if you can't find strawberries or you don't have any frozen ones, too expensive, start looking for some of these other options, right? That might be more in seasonal or more cost effective. You will still need to use pectin and acid with any of these. Now, when you get into different parts of the season, right? And for example, you've got, let's see, cranberries, right? Maybe it's Thanksgiving time and you want to make a cool cranberry jam or jelly. You don't need to add pectin for most of the time. Most of the time you don't need to, right? Because they have enough pectin that's already inside of the fruit, okay? Now you'll notice something here that's really interesting. In group 1, sour apples. They have that pectin and acid in there. But ripe apples do not have enough. Again, right? Changes in the fruits itself. Components, right? Pectin levels, acid levels. This is also in on the class page up here, just so you know. In this, if you click through your slideshow, this is a cool little article on why pickles are trending, not only just because Chef Bryce loves them, but actually the entire nation loves them. And what did we talk about pickles doing before? What do? They cut fat, right? That acidity breaks through fat, it adds a crunch, it adds a pop. It adds that possible fifth flavor that is missing in a dish, right? That acid to balance out the other flavors. So pectin levels, if you want that, this link is right in here, all right? If you need to refer to it. Now, here's one other great website that I want to pull up and show you. This is fantastic. If you have questions, this is the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Tons of information on canning, freezing, drying, curing, smoking, fermenting, pickling, how to can, all right? For this week's assignment, you do have the option of canning. There is the video on canning. So you can make a short life pickle or jam and not go through the whole process of canning, or you can take it one step further and go through the process of canning. Now, canning means we're taking a glass receptacle, all right? Glass jar, you're gonna sterilize that first. It's really important, again, bacteria, because what happens if we put a condiment inside a jar, it's not clean, we seal it up, boom, explosion, right? Basically just crazy town is going on in there. A lot of pressure is gonna develop. Who remembers that first lesson when you're at the grocery store to check the tops of your cans, right? If it's bubbled up, you don't buy it. If it's bubbled up, don't eat it. You want it to be flat. That means, okay, you don't have extra fermentation. You don't have some potentially hazardous material, bacteria that's growing in there that could make you or a customer sick. All right. So canning, sterilization, and proper, just taking really good sanitary precautions on this is really important if you choose to do this, okay? Because they're going to be shelf stable after going through the canning process. All right. Not required, but it is an option. Shanna, yes.
Okay, I had a quick question, Jeff. My great grandmother, I remember her making jams and jellies back when I was younger. And when she made the real smooth jelly, she always had that wax on the top of it. What was the purpose of that? Because she's not here any longer, so it's like I remember that, but I don't recall why she always had that big chunk of wax sitting on top of everything.
Also aiding in the preservation. It just seals it in. Remember, okay, so when we put a seal on top of a jar, right? What's stopping penetrating? External environmental factors, right? Bacteria that could possibly get in.
So you do that as well as when you're canning as well? Because I remember she can it and then, seal it, and that's just an extra protectant. Is that what you're saying?
It's extra protection. It is not mandatory, but it is just an extra seal. Chef, do you have any other info in regarding to wax seals?
No, I haven't seen it. It hasn't been used in a while, at least in like my experience. I haven't seen any waxing, but yeah, I mean, that's all for, protecting anything that in that environment that might be able to penetrate through is just an extra protective layer. And I know as far as canning, here in Denver, and I'm sure a lot of cities have this, they have classes that you can take and actually need to get like certified to sell that at an establishment. It's a canning license, which is really cool. I never got it at my restaurant. We never actually went to the process of canning, but it's really popular. Like I brought up before, a lot of these restaurants that have their own farms, they get their canning license, and actually, what a great way to, sell more of that product and use more of that product is take not only for your menu, but also, like a little stand up front, or, oh my goodness, I love your guys' pickles so much, you know, can I take a jar home? I mean, that happens a lot with restaurants now, especially like I said, the ones using the farms. And I know even in places like New York, a lot of restaurants are doing, you know, rooftop gardens, and just being able to, you know, preserve those products and, you know, continue to sell them. What a cool way to, you know, sell it on your menu and, you know, preserve those a lot longer. But, you know, with dehydration too, I was just going to touch one. I was playing around with dehydrated mushrooms the other day, which are really fun. And yes, you can like, you know, utilize those in that state of dehydrated, crumpling them up over a salad or using them as a crust on something. But dehydrating and then rehydrating items can also be a lot of fun. I rehydrated the mushrooms in, I think I did like a combination of beef stock and wine, and so it absorbed that flavor. So now you remove that moisture, you know, in the dehydrating process, and now I took it and you know, filled that mushroom with a new flavor of, you know, a little acidity from the wine, and then, you know, some richness from the stock. So you know, just because you dehydrate something, you know, with the fruits and vegetables, doesn't mean you can't rehydrate it too. That's very fun technique to incorporate new flavors into it as well, but kind of fun. So just don't think, oh, it's, you know, we preserved it like this. You know, that's kind of the point too, is you preserve it to make it last on your shelf. So those mushrooms could sit in my cabinet for another 2 months, but, you know, I can rehydrate them and, you know, bring back some of that original texture, but with a whole new flavor. So it was kind of fun, you know, playing around with that. So don't feel like, oh, it's dehydrated, now I got to utilize it this way. There's different ways you can kind of bring it back to life as well.
Definitely, chef. And not just rehydrating in different ways, but different ways of utilizing it. So you could rehydrate those items, or you could take a microplane, right? Everybody knows what a microplane is, that really fine grater, and grate that dehydrated product over another dish, right? To add some texture or aromatics or who knows what, right? So tons of ways of utilizing a dehydrated product in a new way. All right, cool. So let's hop into the assignment, walk through this, and see if there's any other questions, and then yeah, let's go. Okie dokie. Here we are.
Chef Catherine, you muted yourself.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't even know how that happened. So, like I said, this week you have to pick 2 of the 4, but if you have the desire, you can of course do more. More is always welcome, but not required. Make sure we're following those critical steps for self-ID, sanitation, right? We're pickling, we're preserving. These are important things. So sanitation, sanitation, sanitation. Now, in regards to the vegetable, all right, let's just start it off. Pickled vegetable. You can take any type of vegetable, right? What's in season? What's inexpensive? What do you have extra of, right? Go for that. You've got a little wiggle room here with the pickling spices. If you want to create your own flavor profile that you want, go for it, all right? Just be sure that you're putting that in the mise en place and you've got the right amount of them. Again, you do have some flexibility, right? With what type of vinegar you're using. Using different types of vinegar and have different end profile, flavor profile differences. Nice, good result is usually, you could do a little blend. That white vinegar can sometimes be really aggressive and sharp. So mellowing that out with a little bit of apple cider vinegar can help, or red wine vinegar can just help balance that white vinegar aggressiveness, unless that's the end product that you want. And again, uniform cuts on your vegetables that you're going to be pickling, right? If you're going to take a cucumber, let's just think about a cucumber. Are you going to do thin rounds, or are you going to do spears, right? And remember, if you're doing thin rounds, you're increasing that surface area, right? Those are going to start to be ready sooner than a big, thick spear. Okay? Same is true for any vegetable that you use. The cuts that you want to use, you want to be uniform, okay? And know that the thicker it is, the longer it's going to take for that vegetable to really reach that right consistency where that vinegar and solution has gone into the center of it. You don't want to just have the outside going and the inside still hasn't been really exposed to the solution. Of course, if you do want to can this, you would do a slight difference here. You don't need to just cover and refrigerate for at least 24 hours per serving. You could, you would put that, you'll see in the video here for canning, how to take those nep sticks, which is putting those into a sterilized jar and simmering those for a while and making sure that can lid collapses and is sucked down. And then moving to the next stage, that becomes shelf stable. But if you want to just keep it easy, yes, you can just hop right in, cover that, refrigerate, label and date, make sure everything is labeled and dated, right? Chef Bryce was talking about using a lot of pickles at his restaurant. If you think that they weren't label and dating, you're out of your mind, right? Really important, okay? Label and date everything. You all are heading out an externship not too far down the road. If you're not already working in the industry, labeling and dating is everything. Otherwise, you got another coworker that's coming into work lunch and doesn't know what the heck that mayonnaise is. Is that the garlic roasted aioli or is that the plain mayo, right? What do I need for my station setup? So really important things here. All right, same goes for the jam, the strawberry jam that you're gonna make. Like we said, if you need a substitution for the strawberry, you can. And you can either refrigerate or you can go through the canning process here, okay? One thing to note, okay, we looked at these dehydrated dried apples. It's gonna take a long time, 5 to 8 hours, depending upon, the humidity where you live, right? That in your environment, that plays a factor, and your temperature of your oven. Oftentimes restaurants will dehydrate overnight, right? You've got a hot oven, throw something in those racks and let it go overnight because you've got residual heat going, and that just overnight got 8-10 hours slowly dehydrating. On to the sauerkraut. Here's some important things to take note of. One, you are going to core that cabbage, all right? Thinly slice, and you are going to weigh it. Weigh that cabbage, all right? Divide the weight by 40 to get the amount of salt needed. That salt, right, goes into that sauerkraut, and then you're gonna make sure you pack it down, put a lid on it, put a weight on it, and then it's gonna take a few days. So if you want to do the cabbage, the sauerkraut, which is delicious and easy, plan to start that a few days ahead of time so you can start to see this process, okay? You're gonna start to see bubbles. You're gonna start to see water leaching out. Another really important thing here is the temperature, right? Like we said, if you're too cold, what's gonna happen? If it's too cold, what's gonna happen? Is anything gonna happen? No way, right? If it's too cold, nothing's gonna happen. Too hot, it's gonna speed up the process, right? So you wanna just keep that in a nice, dark, cool area and give it a few days to get going. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Chef, there's a couple questions in chat about being able to pickle peppers for the vegetable. I think Frida,
Okay.
you brought that up. As well as with can we use a dehydrator for the dried apples or anything?
So we would prefer you to not use a dehydrator. We want you to use an oven, see how that experience goes. Dehydrator, you set it and you forget it, you walk away, right? Not every restaurant that you work at is gonna have a dehydrator. So you need to know how to do this by using an oven. All right, so no dehydrators. We want you using the old oven for that. As for pickles, pickled peppers, yeah, you can pickle peppers, of course. Jalapeno, Fresno, if you're talking about sweet ones, you can do that too. Yeah, you really have free reign and fun with this. Let's see, plums, Japanese plums. Yeah, Japanese plums would be awesome. And what else did we have?
Frida brought up a good point about your sauerkraut being stinky. Definitely, when we make our sauerkraut, you could smell that from a mile away. So you thought the cauliflower brought some fun smells. Just wait for that sauerkraut to, fill your house up with fun, exciting new smells. So a lot of this, pickling, and when you're making that browning liquid, you have a lot of aromas. Like, let's see that. We want to see that in that narrative for you guys. Like, that definitely comes in with that aroma. You'll see a lot with this when you're like making a brine for your pickles, the vinegar in the air, the different hard spices and things like that. Tell us about those. That's what we want to see in that narrative. The flavors and the aromas and all that. So definitely put that in. And if it's, sometimes the sauerkraut, doesn't smell like how it tastes, but we want to see that. So definitely include that in your narrative as well. So good point, Frida.
Awesome. Thank you both. Yeah. Okay. Well, class. Shannon, I think that hand was from earlier, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. I just want to make sure. Drinking pickle juice. Sure, let's end on that note. Few things to note about pickle juice. I do drink pickle juice. I love it. I love it. You know that in Russia, pickle juice is a hangover cure. Why? Why do we think that it might be a hangover cure? Electrolytes, yeah, marathon user, exactly. We've got that salt, right? You put that in, got a little acid, hopefully some good probiotics, hit that in, and you're good to go. Yes, the electrolytes, the goodness. Remember, fermentation, dehydration, pickling, jamming, smoking, curing. These are ancient traditions, okay? Just because industry has changed doesn't mean we're still not using these. If these things went out of vogue, they're back and stronger than ever. Guess what? These traditions and techniques will never die. All right. Technology and innovation will help us improve upon it, but at the end of the day, the basics still remain. Okay. So on that note, we've got lots of fun talk going on in the chat. Pickle juice on sauteed greens. Never thought about that, but I love that. Right, that's going to bring in a little bit of acid to those bitter greens. Right, definitely. And a little bit of Bloody Mary. Right, which is some little pickle juice in there. Maybe pickles on the side. So class. Another great chef out there, Sean Brock. Has some great information on cookbooks on pickling and traditional preservation. If you have any questions regarding any of these or want extra information, please do not hesitate to reach out so we can guide you in the right direction. Chef Bryce, anything else?
No, maybe just kind of end on a note. We still have a lot of grading to do, and you guys all got your assignments in, but maybe just wanted to highlight one item that I saw, which is cool. We got a press. So Sharon, I think you're actually with us right now. I'd love to just kind of show her process on this and what she did. So give me 1 second here. So executed all this very well. Following this, even like I love Sharon, what you did with your sachet. Not doing cheesecloth, but what a great idea! Like steeping your herbs and everything in a little mesh strainer. But just coming out with that final product, and using a little bit of the garnish too with more of the cauliflower. But really, what great job here! Like it was really cool to see, going through the steps and executing this press. So I just want to highlight that great job. Really fun to watch the steps through this and executing it. So keep up the great work. Like I said, you guys did a great job this week, and I'm excited to keep looking at all of you guys' assignments. So we got a lot more to go. Hopefully I get to see a couple more presses out there, but great job. And hopefully you guys have fun with this week's assignment too.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Chef. And Yeah, just to back that up, you all have been doing a fantastic job on your mise en place, self ID, sanitation. Everything is really good and in order. So keep it up, keep rocking, and reach out if you have any questions. And we'll see you soon. All right. Take care. Bye.